Hey, welcome back to the Million Dollar Body Podcast, the intersection of physical success, time, freedom, and adventure. I'm Nate Palmer. Have you ever felt like you could not have it all? You couldn't have financial success, thriving business, be an amazing dad, and also have that fitness and the health that is abundant and is exactly the way you want it to be, where you wake up in the morning and really feel amazing? Joining me today is Lawrence Dunning. Lawrence is an entrepreneur, a fitness expert, and he's someone I really respect in this space because he knows that it's possible and he's striving to have it all himself. Lawrence, welcome.
Nate, so great to see you and a happy new year.
Yeah, happy new year to you as well. This is the first podcast we're recording is in 2022, and I know it's going to be the best one of the year. So I'm really pumped.
No pressure.
Yeah, don't screw up though.
Well, Nate, listen, I really love your message because too many people, like we were talking just before we started recording, I know too many people that have so much money, but it's at the expense of so much. And I think, I'd much rather be a guy on some beach in some coastal town in the middle of nowhere and have my fitness and zero in the bank than the opposite way around, where I have all this money, but it's the expense of my health. So we're such kindred spirits. I love your message. And I think it's not easy trying to juggle all those three, but I think that's the noble and worthy goal that we should all strive for.
Yeah, at least put our effort into it, because like maybe you can't have all three at like the upper echelon. You can't be a trillionaire and and be Michael Phelps and also, be dad of the year. Maybe you can't have all of those things at the highest level, but we can always be working towards it. I don't know if you heard this quote before. I love this. I say it all the time, but the man with his health has 1,000 dreams. The man without his health only has one. Have you heard that?
I think you said that last time we spoke, and that sums up our philosophy. I love that. It's so true. It's like you look at that billionaire on his deathbed. He doesn't care for anything else than more time in this life, more time and more health. And for me, it's not just about, I'm really conscious of time being the ultimate commodity and trying to maximize our time. Like, especially we're both fathers, every week our kids are developing and changing. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss this stage. I don't want to miss that stage. But at the same time, it's not just time. It's like what you mentioned it's feeling good, not feeling like shit all day. I want my health. So I have not only time, but I can do stuff. I'm an older dad. So I'm 42 and I've got a 1-year-old and we're trying for a second. So it's as an older dad, I have to prioritize my health because I want to be wrestling with him when I'm in my late 50s and early 60s, running with him, working out with him, doing fun stuff. So I think there was a great thing that really hit it home for me. And I was dating an ex-girlfriend before I met my wife. And this is why she's an ex-girlfriend, is she'd always say, she'd always want to just never think about tomorrow and always just maximize today. But it came at the expense of a lot of drinking and partying. She never cared about her health. She was a bit younger, in her 20s. And then we're in the Grand Canyon and we met this really old couple. And he had the world record for sky jumps. He had done like 40,000 or 60,000, something crazy. He was a really cool guy in his early 80s. And his wife was also in, I think, maybe late 70s. And she was a yoga instructor. And they were just, when you meet those people, they've been together a long time. They had an incredible life. They were very vibrant and they were just so healthy. And I looked at them and I thought, man, that's what I want to be. I want to be like that. And she also wanted to be like that, but she wasn't putting the steps in. And I think that's the key is, when I first was in finance, when I was young, I'd get a lot of my colleagues, and it was good natured. They would kind of poke fun at me because they would see me. I'd bring my meals into the trading floor and I'd eat healthy, and they're all about drinking and partying and that lifestyle. And you didn't really see the effects then because I was in my 20s. But now a lot of them, their bodies are falling apart and they're not that old. They're in their early 40s. And I think that's the key is it's very hard when you're young to think, we're all thinking about today and maybe tomorrow. We're not really thinking long term. But it's just been very eye-opening for me just the last few years, just to see these people that their bodies really seem to be falling apart, and it's so young and it's terrifying. So it's a good reminder that it's worth putting the steps in to look after your health when you're young.
Totally. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're just listening to it. Lawrence looks like he's like 25 years old. He's got way less gray hairs than me. So he's doing something right here. I agree.
Thank you, brother.
I always think about this when I see like fitness influencers who are in their 20s. They're like, man, when I was in my 20s, I ate Hot Pockets and cigarettes and I was really skinny too. So like, come at me after a couple of kids if we could talk again. So I love that you brought that up, that like sometimes it's not even about in the moment, right? When you're 22 and all you eat is like fast food and Haagen-Dazs, it doesn't reflect, right? And then fast forward 10 years and you're like, wow, why do these hot dogs give me heartburn? It's like, well, because your body hates you.
Yeah.
You've done a really bad job for 10 years and now you have to pay, like in retrograde. It's like going into debt, right? You know, like
Yeah.
if you're in debt, $50,000, $100,000, and you're trying to make a bunch, if you're trying to make $1 million, you're so much farther behind than the person who's starting at zero, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. And also coming from Europe, it's very different to see. I think the American, I guess the way of life in America for me, in Europe, I think people are a lot healthier on average, but they're a lot more just average. Whereas in America, it tends to be split between people that have kind of, it has the highest obesity in the world, I'm pretty sure. So people who don't have any concern for their health, but then it also has the super fit people like you that, you made a lifestyle in fitness and you prioritize your health. So I think that's one thing I love about America is you have the choice. You can be a slob, or you can be an athlete, or you can be anywhere in between. And they make it easy. Whereas when I travel to Europe, it seems like everyone's kind of probably on average more healthy, but everyone's kind of average, if that makes sense. So we're lucky we have the opportunities to, one thing I love is that they're making healthy fast food now. They're making it a lot easier to eat better on the go for busy people. You have all these, I have a vegan meal prep service, so I love to eat red meat, and I worry I eat too much of it. But it's just a great thing to have a delivery service where I can have frozen meals. I know they're healthy, and I can just, when I'm on the go, quinoa, black beans, things like that I know can just fuel me, and I don't have to cook an elaborate meal to be healthy. So I think that America's made it easy for you to choose whatever you want to do, whatever lifestyle you want. So I think that's a great thing. I'm very grateful for.
What I just got out of that was that you said that America's number one. That's like that kind of what I
heard. Well, mate, listen, I'm an immigrant. I've been here 18 years, and I'm very patriotic for America. I feel like I root for America more than anyone else. So I think it's definitely an immigrant's dream. I live the dream. I work really hard, but I think the opportunities that we have here is something that we shouldn't take for granted, for sure.
I love that, and I think that like that's the case in a lot of different ways. And I to kind of go I'm just veering off right now, but like I see a lot of people with these, like, especially the New Year's, who are like, oh, glad that year is behind us. And it's like, yeah, and you're sitting here maybe you had a hard year. I don't want to like speak for everyone here, but like you're sitting here like in the most privileged country in the entire world with like the most opportunities at our doorsteps, with literally just so much ease and so much access to things, and be like, wow, that was a real shit year. And you're like, come on, like have a little perspective on this. You didn't have to wake up this morning and go walk 2 miles to go get water. Like you're going to be good. You're going to be fine. You're already the richest 5% of people who have ever lived ever. So you're going to be okay. So I think that's a great perspective.
Well, Nate, and you have that perspective because you've traveled widely, which is another reason I like you. But I think there's something where if you can afford a Starbucks cup of coffee, you're in the top 1% globally. So I think you're right. We're very, very blessed and lucky to be living here in today. And times are so easy that I think people, yeah, of course, the last, since COVID, there was a lot of challenges, but I think relatively it's still so much easier than, our grandparents that had to fight in the, World War II and things like that. Like watch, what's that movie? Watch one of those World War II movies and you get a new appreciation for how easy life is. But one of my favorite things is people complaining about capitalism on $1,000 iPhone. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I saw someone at the coffee shop the other day on her Apple iMac said "kill capitalism," and I was like, yeah, cool, very cool.
that sums up the life we're
in this situation, like kind of in this time that we live in, Lawrence, where we have so much, there's so much given to us. We have a lot of freedoms, and a lot of abilities. How do you prioritize like staying mentally tough? How do you prioritize not only just like having the gratitude for things that we're able to do, but also pushing yourself when it's very easy to stagnate, very easy to kind of get complacent? How do you push yourself personally? Fitness, business, familial, all of it.
I think I have something which I don't know where it came from. I had it for a long time, and I have this terrifying fear of being an old man with regrets. So I think my drive is, I think it's up to us to figure out what our goals are for life. And my big thing is I don't want to waste my potential, and I don't want to realize that when it's too late. So that's my driving force. But of course, it was funny in your introduction, you talked about having good energy in the morning. I'm definitely not a morning person. So my energy is, I definitely start off slow and it kind of build up, and I peak in early evenings, probably when I peak. But I think, so even though I'm a very motivated person, I definitely have periods where I go in and out of motivation. And I found various tricks that work. So a big thing for me is it's very easy, especially as a new dad, like I'm sure you remember, to let everything go by the wayside, because suddenly you've got this newborn and your life is turned upside down. Everything's very chaotic. But I think a big thing I realized is I have to prioritize reading, and that gives me perspective. And I love to read about great men, like I love reading about Churchill and World War II and things like that. And that gives me a lot of appreciation for just how good things are. And I avoid legacy news like the plague. Like, it's so negative. I remember when COVID first came and they had the death counter, and it was just it's fascinating, because when the New York Times, they had a headline that was like 100,000 died of COVID, but at the same time they didn't talk about there was actually 1 million people that died of all these other causes in America, but that wasn't mentioned. So but there was also probably 1 million births at the same time. So I'm pretty sure the global population did go up last year. So I think it's so easy to get caught up in this, left versus right hatred and all this bickering online and fear. And that's what they're selling you. They're selling you dopamine hits from fear. And I avoid that stuff like the plague. So I try and stay with, positive people. That lovely saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend time with. And I love stuff like this. I love connecting with people like you. We haven't known each other long, but you are such a kindred spirit. We see the world in very similar ways, and that keeps me motivated too. So I think it's on us to really focus on what life we want to live. So if we want to live a positive, flourishing life, then we've got to have positive, flourishing influences.
I love that. I love what you're talking about in terms of like the 5 people you spend your time with, having those positive influences, rejecting some of like the media who does not have your best interest in mind, only wants to sell more eyeballs on their product to get more ad revenue, right? And the capitalism again. But I also want to go back to what you said first. You said you have a deep, deep fear of waking up as an old man with regrets. And I think that is powerful, bro. Like I think that a lot of times we have to live in this like optimistic, happy-go-lucky, everything should be fun and easy all the time. But in reality, you should be scared. You should be terrified of waking up and you're 60 and being like, oh, I screwed up. I wasted 30 years of my life. I wasted all my time away from my family, didn't watch my kids grow up at all to focus on money, which doesn't do anything besides solve money problems. I sold my entire health in order to build this business, and I think that having that degree of fear in your life and having that like kind of like in the back of your mind, like some people will like not say this. Some people are like, we're optimism, we're positive. We're in that positive psychology movement right now. They won't tell you it's okay to be afraid. And sometimes a lot of good shit happens out of being a little bit afraid. So I love that you said that, because I think it's good. We need to have that yin and yang. We need to be a little bit afraid, and we also need to be surrounded by that positivity.
Well, I absolutely love that, because I think fear is a healthy driver in so many ways. So I'll give you an example. Every single time I go to jiu-jitsu class, and I've been training jiu-jitsu now close to 20 years, I think, I've been teaching since I was a purple belt, a long time, been a black belt for about 5 years. Every single time I go, there's still fear, because the young hungry lions, the blue belts and purple belts, they're trying to kill the old man. I'm the old lion on the mats now, and it's never easy. And I think that's why I like it. Or if today after this show, it's sub-zero temperatures in Chicago, I'm about to go for a run. I hate running in the cold. That's why I'm going to do it, because it builds character. So I think that fear, when you're doing things that scare you, it's a sign of growth, and it's a sign you're out of your comfort zone. So I think that's such a good guide. There's so many decisions where, should I make this call? Should I try and launch this business? Should I try and launch a podcast? All these things, if it scares you, it's probably an indication that you're going to grow from it. So we should go towards that fear. So I love fear as a metric. And then back to your earlier point about having the fear of regret. I think that's a great, maybe that wouldn't work for everybody, but I think that's a great driver for me personally. And I think if you're trying to build anything, say you want to be a best-selling author. Well, how do you start? Well, you can't start by marketing a book you haven't written. So you have to say, okay, I want to be a best-selling author. The first thing is to write a really good book. Then when I've written it, I'm going to push the marketing. And you have these different stages, but you're starting with the end goal in mind, being a best. No one goes to write a book that no one's going to read. So I think, or you want to build a business, no one's going to want to build a business that isn't going to be successful. So you have to have that goal, and then you have to kind of work backwards and see the steps to achieve that goal. So I think that for me, that philosophy of not being someone with regrets, that works really well. And I think sometimes it's a little frustrating. Sometimes I feel like I'm an 80-year-old man who's like at the end of his life and I've got no time for this. But I think hopefully when I do get there, I would have lived a full life, because I'm living with that philosophy where I'm trying to maximize my time. And I think as a new parent, I definitely have that feeling when people waste my time. I think, this is time I could be with my son. So I think that being a parent, I'm very lucky that it gives us that perspective of time being even more precious. Because when you're young, no young person thinks about time. You have so much time. You have all the time in the world. It's only when you're older and you don't have all the time in the world that you appreciate it more.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the like kind of like the steps and the growth we experience as parents. I feel like I have a daughter who's almost 4 and I have my son's almost 1. So kind of right in that same stage. But when I'm talking to my daughter a lot about fear and about courage and stuff like that, I feel like, I get a lot of these things from kids' books because I think they do a great job of explaining it. But like, going back to what you're talking about with fear and doing things that are hard and doing things that push you, like it does not sound good to go out and run in 0 degrees temperature. I went for a walk this morning. It was like 30 degrees and I was like, Bert, I'm really cold. So like 0 degrees, I'm good for you. Keep that. But I think that like one of my daughter's like children's book says, like fear is not necessarily the absence, or courage isn't the absence of fear. It's seeing something that you're fearful of and pushing through it anyways. It's like bravery rather than not having any fear at all. And I think that when you inoculate yourself to the fear, to the discomfort by choosing to do hard things, choosing to show up to jiu-jitsu and roll with young guys, choosing to go on these runs, even that's like getting in an ice cold shower, getting in a cold pool, doing things that challenge you and push you, even if it's just a little tiny bit. I love this about working out because it's like maybe I got 50 pounds last week for 10 reps, but that push for me, 50 pounds for 11 reps, it's so small. It's so minute. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But if you add up those efforts, you add up your runs in 0 degree temperatures over and over and over again throughout weeks, months, and years, your reality, everything is totally different for you. You could have someone else who's exactly the same as you, 42-year-old guy, came over from the UK, but you've shaped and molded your brain into a weapon. You are now the captain of your fate. You've decided that you choose hard things. That's who you are. So when now faced with you take this 2 guys and you put them in same circumstances, 2 hard things, build a business, become a parent, something like get in the best shape of your life. My money's always on the guy who chose hard. Always.
That's so true. And I think the part of the reason that so many people were freaking out in 2020 when everything changed is so many of these people, it was the first time they had encountered discomfort or some kind of challenge. And it made me terrified thinking, whatever the death rate is of COVID, whether it's, 0.5% or 1% or, in that range, imagine there was a pandemic where it was 30 to 40% death rate and it was killing healthy young people. Like there would be complete anarchy. We saw even with this, which in hindsight was very mild, we saw the veneer of civilized life in cities almost break. It was pretty close. And so it makes me just think when I'm raising my son, if there's one lesson that I want to teach him, it's I don't know what the world's going to be like in 20, 30, 40 years, but I have to teach him to be adaptable and anti-fragile and be able to be strong to overcome those challenges. And I think it was such a good reminder for so many people, like, man, we've got so soft as a species, and myself included. I went through a bit of a depression when the world shut down and all my goals went to shit. I'm not immune to it. And that was actually the worst shape of my life because I had all these goals, everything was canceled. And my wife just got pregnant and all her friends got her all this just candy and buckets for her cravings. She had no sugar cravings, but this guy over here he has a sweet tooth. So I ate everything. And I remember I was sitting on the couch and I looked down and I had a little belly and I'm like, this is so disgusting. I really let myself go. And then I snapped out of it, but it's not easy. And I think too many people look at people like you and I who prioritize fitness and they think, oh, it's easy for them. And it's not easy, but it's something that I think you and I both know those days we don't feel like doing it. And as you get older and you get more tired, you have more responsibilities, it definitely becomes harder to make time to work out. But we know when we do it, we're going to feel so much better. We've done it so many times that we don't even question it. It becomes something where it's not, okay, should I go and work out today? It's, I've got to get this in and I know my life's going to be much better. So it becomes a habit. So I think any successful person that I admire has built into their lives certain habits, and over time they make time their ally, not their enemy. Because you look fantastic, you're in great shape. If you go and eat like absolute shit for a day or two and drink till you pass out, you're still going to look pretty good. It's only a few days, but if you kept doing that, you're making time your enemy. You're eventually going to lose your health and your fitness. And I think that's the key is, progress takes time, so you have to make time your ally.
I like you said about time again being like with the most precious commodity. But going back to what you were talking about with helping your son become anti-fragile is what you said.
Mm.
And I know you're not like he's not like 9 or 10. You're not really taking him out and coaching like soccer, football, whatever. But like, what are some of your strategies? And I know this will probably change and evolve as you grow as a father. But like, what are you thinking, like with a 1-year-old son? Because I think raising a son, like I have 2, right? So like raising a son feels like it's more weight to me than raising a daughter. It feels like there's like, it's like having a big dog. If you have a big dog, you have to make sure that dog is very well trained. You have a little dog and it's like a Chihuahua. You're like, oh, he's just like that. He just hates everyone.
He's harmless.
Yeah,
Exactly.
But I feel like with a son, you like there's weight to that. Like I need to raise him into being a man who acts right. Like, so what are you thinking for that? What are you gonna do?
I think the 2 things, I definitely think martial arts is key. He doesn't have to. I don't know if I'd even want him being a professional fighter or competing too much, but he has to learn. He has to spend a few years doing martial arts just for the discipline, and so he can protect himself. That's a non-negotiable. And the other thing is, I think, exposure. So I think as much exposure to different sports, different activities, different. I've already traveled with him to a few different places. I think the biggest weakness, I would say, of people in America is that the ones that haven't traveled have such an American-centric view of life. It makes them, in my mind, kind of clueless. And whereas if you go to some countries, like I remember when I went to Cambodia, they have the highest percentage of orphans anywhere in the world, and it was just so sad. I remember I went to one of those touristy places, and I finished with the sites. And then I was chatting to these young kids, and they were like, "Oh, come back to our place. We'll make you coffee." And I spent the day hanging out with these 2 young orphans, and they were living in this absolute, almost with nothing. They were surrounded by dogs and love, and it was so beautiful. I remember I was in my late 20s, and I was thinking, man, if my life goes to shit, if ever I'm super depressed, I'm going to get a one-way ticket to Cambodia, and I'm just going to volunteer at orphanages and just hang out here, because they're such beautiful, beautiful people, but they have literally nothing. They have the highest. These orphans, it's just so sad. But if I had grown up in some wealthy suburb in the US, and I'd just been around, affluence, and I'd never seen struggle, then my view is going to be very, very different. So I think as a father, I love Jordan Peterson has that saying where I can't remember exactly, but it's something about we shouldn't make weak children. We should make really strong children and then teach them how to harness that strength. And I really like that philosophy. I think it's so true. I think a real man is strong, but he's not a bully. He's going to use that strength for good. And I think too many, like if you're not strong and you do something nice, it's almost going to be out of weakness because you don't really have a choice. And I think these are such, I mean, obviously he's way too young to talk about any of this stuff, but I'm so, my wife is so funny. Every day he grows up, she's like, oh, he's grown up too quickly. I love him being so small. And me, I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait to take him to his first boxing gym and put a jiu-jitsu kimono on and get, so I'm already thinking about, I think as a man, you're so excited to do that kind of stuff with your son, whereas she's still thinking, no, I want to enjoy these times. But these are, the thing is, Nate, I have all these ideas. I've read a lot of books the last year on raising. There's a great book called Raising Lions on raising children, raising boys. And I think the key is it's obviously not the same, but it's similar. And you brought up the dogs. I've always had big dogs, and my dogs are always well behaved. And the big thing is I'm going to run my younger dog. My older dog's too old to run now, but my younger dog, she's going to run with me, 4 or 5 miles after when we finish this, and she's going to burn off that energy. And the reason they're well behaved is because they burn off the energy. And I think it's the same with kids, especially with boys. Even my son, he's a year old, but he has so much energy already. And you've got to burn that off in a healthy way. And I think the best thing is sports and martial arts.
So it sounds like martial arts is like they give you the discipline component. Yes. Travel and experiences give you the exposure component. So I feel like that kind of, if I distilled your philosophy down to 2 pieces, be discipline and exposure to other new stuff.
Exactly. And I hope he likes
powerful.
But also, Nate, I hope he likes to read. Obviously, he's going to be a bit older, but I grew up in a household where my dad was very unique, and we had no TV in the house till I was a teenager. So I was maybe 13 or 14. And then even when we did, I had created these habits where he would say I wasn't allowed to watch more than, say, an hour a day. And I would always watch them, maybe 20 minutes. I would watch nothing because I'd grown up with that good habit. Now, I don't have that. I have a TV in my house, but I think instilling certain habits are so important. And I grew up with a love of reading because of that. And I think I've got so much out of that, so much. And it's not, I remember someone asking me, he saw my office and he saw I had all these books and he said, how much is your life better because you read? And I hadn't even thought about it like that. And I'm sure it has been in many ways, but it makes me happy and it makes me figure out the philosophy that I want to live. And the best thing to do is if you read about great people and you see, the either the challenges they overcome that makes you stronger, or just you get inspiration. It's very hard to get inspired if you don't have people to look up to, people to admire. So I think that's the key as well with those two things: the travel, the sports, but also hopefully I'll get a love of learning, a curiosity. And that's one of the reasons I love podcasts is you get access to people all over the country, all over the world that you wouldn't have access to. So there's a lot of negatives to technology, but one of the positives is what we're doing right now. And that's wonderful.
Being able to share ideas and create new ones on the fly even. But
Exactly.
I'm with you. I love books. I love the fact that you can take a book and you can get someone's information, like their best information that they've gleaned over years or decades. And you can just read about it. And you're like, I'll never speak to Russell Brunson, but I can read his books. I can get access to his information. It's incredible, like the power that books have. So exactly. I love that, what you just said.
No, exactly. Nate, what you just said, sorry to interrupt, but what you just said is so true. Like it might have taken him a year to write a book, but it's decades of his wisdom and his life, and he's crafting his thoughts, and maybe he's written a few other books, but this book is better. And how long does it take to read a book? A moderate sized book is a few hours of your life, and you can get everything this guy's learned. So I think I love that, what you just said, the philosophy of a book is a prison that contains a treasure, and we just have to open it and read it. And it's become so hard. I was so proud of my focus and my concentration until about 5 years ago when I started working in real estate. And because so much of real estate is you don't have a set schedule, so your phone is always ringing, whether it's text calls or emails for work, you become very attached to your phone. And I noticed it really was hard to focus and read. And I have to now just do tricks where I put it in the other room and it's not even there, or I read on a plane, I don't get the Wi-Fi. So I have to now put myself in situations because I'm fighting that the dopamine from phones. It's so hard. So I think that's another thing I'm scared about with my son is I don't want him to grow up too addicted to technology. Like we said, there's so many benefits to technology, but there's a lot of negatives too, that I think that our kids, we luckily were old enough where we didn't grow up where we had phones and iPads when we were tiny. But I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for our kids is technology.
I think you're right. I don't exactly know how to handle that. I'm sure I'll read some books about it in the future. But Lawrence, okay. So like kind of as we wrap up here, I would be remiss to ask you or to not ask you some questions about some of your personal fitness habits, things that have led you to be successful, because I know you're a busy dad, you're in real estate, you're an entrepreneur, you have limited time. That's the story of people who are listening to this right now. You have limited time. And a lot of people are getting back into it. This episode's going to air in the new year. What would be some of your maybe like top 3 recommendations? Where do people start if they're looking to get back into the best shape of their life?
Great question, Nate. So I have a good friend of mine, Big Brad. He was complaining to me that he was out of shape, got out of shape last year, and he really wants to get in shape this year. And he doesn't know where to start. He's in his early 40s and he's kind of let himself go a little bit. And I said, it's so easy right now. He lives in Chicago on the lakefront. It's like, put on a warm jacket and put on headphones, put on an inspirational podcast, and just fucking walk for an hour. Just a brisk walk. Start slow. So I think that the too many people, they want to be there at step 1, they want to be at step 100, and they're like, how do I get there? Well, just go from step 1 to step 2, and then step 2 to, like we said about making time your ally. So I think so just do something. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go and do 10 sets of deadlifts and squats, superset it. Just do something small. So that would be the first thing, is just do something, but do it today. Stop fucking around. Procrastination is the enemy of everything. So that'll be the first one. The second thing, I think, with scheduling is very important. So while we mentioned earlier, I'm a late person, not a morning person. I would love to do my workouts in the evening, but I noticed that I get mental fatigue from work. So physically, I might not be tired, but mentally, I'm exhausted. And when it comes 8 p.m., I'm just like, yeah, I was supposed to go for a run. It's just, I'll do it tomorrow. So I know that even though I am a later person with my schedule, I have to get my workouts done early, and I have to time block them. So for instance, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon, that's jujitsu. If I have a client calling and they really want to get into a property, either I have to do a different time or I have to get a colleague to cover me, because those are sacred times. So I think you have to be really, really disciplined with your scheduling, and you have to schedule it as a priority, because you can always can expand. I can work 50 hours this week. I can work 60, maybe I can work 70. It can just keep expanding. But your workouts, it just has to be an hour and a half. You have to time block, and that has to be sacred. And then third, I think I would say diet. I have a super sweet tooth, and I've noticed when I eat sugar, if I have a big dessert after dinner, I'm going to crave sugar the next day at lunch. I'm going to crave sugar the next day at dinner. I'm going to crave sugar maybe day 2. And it becomes almost like that. I know now that the enjoyment from it is going to be severely limited by all the cravings, and it's not really where I want to be. So I think people, to work out and burn 1,000 calories, you've had a good workout. Your shirt is dripping with sweat. You've worked hard. But to drink 1,000-calorie frappuccino is pretty fucking easy. So I think if you want to get in good shape, working out is not enough. I think it has to be paired with a good diet. And I think healthy food, you've just got to. I don't eat things I don't want to eat. I think you just got to find things that you like, and you can eat good food that tastes good and it's still healthy. So I think, but everyone, we all have different tastes and different diets, and we have to find something that works for ourselves. But I think that's an important one too.
Good stuff. So number 1 is stop procrastinating, get out and just do the bare minimum. Start step 1, go for a walk. Number 2 is create that commitment by scheduling and time blocking, because otherwise, if you're so busy and you can't create an event, like it's not gonna happen for you. Your day is not your own at a certain point. And number 3, make sure your nutrition's dialed in. Find foods that work for you, find foods that you like, and eat those, because are foods that are healthy that you like.
Yes.
So
exactly.
You're not trying to only eat kale and be like, man, I hate tilapia, and if I eat another slice of kale, I'm going to shoot myself. So that's good advice there.
Because I think the thing is, we can all push for those 30-day plan or 75 days. We can always push and do something we don't like for a certain amount of time, but in order to make it a habit that we're going to do for years and decades, it has to be something that we kind of enjoy doing. So I think that's most importantly with diet is, I'm so lucky that my wife, she's a good cook and she knows how to cook food that's healthy, and she likes to cook healthy food that tastes good. But even when I was a single bachelor, I'd figured out, and it wasn't always the prettiest, but I'd figured out how to cook and eat healthy food that worked for me. So I think we all have to find our niche with our diet.
100%. Yeah, I think it does take some time. I also think that like finding someone who's done it before has some good ideas, because maybe you don't take their entire system, like for the $1 Million Body Program. Like if you like try the program, you take it and you're like, man, I like 60% of this, 40% of this, I'm going to do something else with. That's good. That's part of your evolution. That's really important. Bruce Lee says, take what is useful, absorb what is useful, reject what is not, add what is uniquely your own. So
exactly. No, I love that, Nate. Like you said, your book is such a great book, but someone doesn't have to clone exactly 100% of your schedule. Maybe 70% works for them, and they're going to tweak some other things to work better for their schedule or their body type or their desires. So I think that's great. But having the mentor is so important, and that's one thing that got me through 2020 when the world shut down. Is I had 2 buddies that kept me accountable, and we pretty much worked out every day. And we had 1 kettlebell and we had a pair of running shoes. That was it. No gyms were open. It couldn't do it, but we made it work, and we had those accountability partners. So I think that's always easy. That's something that I get from jiu-jitsu that I take for granted, and I probably shouldn't, is we have, even though it's an individual sport, it's such a team. Fighting is any kind of fighting, boxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu. When you compete, it's one-on-one. But the team camaraderie, the atmosphere in the gym, it's beautiful. It's truly beautiful. And I'm so blessed to have been around that for 2 decades. The camaraderie, because when you're trying to strangle each other or kill each other, it makes you so much closer after. It's such a unique brotherhood, and I'm so grateful to have that. So I think finding like-minded souls, to accountability partners, workout partners, that's also a great one.
Lawrence, that's been some absolute wisdom and value you dropped on us today. I really appreciate your time and coming on the show. And I can't wait to continue this conversation, because it's been so much fun to talk to you, brother.
Oh, likewise, Nate. Thank you so much for having me, and Happy New Year. It's my first podcast too, so I'm excited. It's going to be a great 2020, my friend.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.